Hi and welcome to the live stream. Good morning, everybody. This is the September live stream. Got a few things for you. I've got upcoming releases on Imprint Umbrella. I've got a thing where I'm going to be talking about the upcoming movies I'm looking forward to and the ones that I'm really indifferent about. So lots of stuff like that. Also saw Beetlejuice. Middle-aged geek girl and I went down to the cinema with the reclining seats and saw that. So there's a ton to talk about, which is going to be a lot of fun. So give us a shout out. Tell us, say hi, and tell me where you are watching from while I have another sip of water. Should be lots of energy in this one. I've had 2 coffees so far. And I'll do this before I do anything else. Let me know if you know what that is. I'm not even going to make you guess. It's a knockbox, which your portafilter when you're making espresso coffee, you knock it against there, and the coffee falls into this thing, and then you can not make a mess. Hi FG, how you doing? So I've got this knockbox that my friend Bruce gave me. There's a bit of coffee on the side there, so it's not entirely unmessy. But he 3D printed it for me. All of that is a 3D print. 2 pieces, the little spindle in the middle is a different piece. But I just thought I'd show you that 3D printing is really cool. It's high impact plastic, so I can bash it without the damn thing falling apart. But I love the fact that I've got this 3D printed knockbox, and it's incredibly practical. Bruce says he's had one of these for a year himself, and he hasn't had a problem with it. I've seen his one still holding up after a year. But 3D printing is really interesting, and my mate Bruce is a fanatic about it. So if he wants to print me out anything else, I may ask him and offer to pay for the filament. So he will make me things 3D printed, which is very, very cool. So yeah, so we've got FG saying hi. Middle-aged Gook Girl is not moderating it today. She's not feeling well. She's got a bit of a cold. So if you hear a cough in the background, send some love to Middle-aged Gook Girl. And I'm flying solo, but she's watching. Adam says that's pretty intricate. Didn't think 3D printers were that sophisticated. Very cool. Yeah, they are incredibly sophisticated. Bruce has got, I think, about 3 of them. One of which requires a hood that goes outside the garage because of the fumes. But yeah, 3D printing is getting really good. In fact, he's got a high quality 3D printer where he can print little gaming miniatures, and they're incredibly intricate. Dick says, hope Sally gets better soon. So do I. We've done a rat test, and she doesn't have the small C, but she's not feeling well. So I thought I'd do a shout out and some love to her. I know she's watching, but she's not listening to the live stream. She's just watching me. So I'll give her a wave. And that just messed up the camera because AI controlled camera. Bugger this. Let me just see if I can do this. I'll have to work with it. But yeah, I've been watching a few movies. I had a really good time with some of them, other ones not so much. But I've kind of got to the stage where I don't know what I want to watch. I know I've got a whole bunch of things I could watch. And I think what it is a wealth of choice. I've got a ton of things I could possibly watch, but the decision-making process is like, will I watch that, or will I watch that, or will I watch this? It's a real problem because I've got this self-set target where I'm trying to watch a movie a day for the whole year, and I'm about 4 days behind. So after I finish this and do other errands I've got to do, I'll probably force myself to sit down and watch a few movies just to kick in the numbers I want to have for the self-imposed target. I'll just take a look at my letterbox and tell you where I'm sitting at the moment. By the way, I hope everybody's doing okay. I know it's autumn in most of the people who are watching this area, but here we're getting springtime. The sun's coming up a little sooner than normal. Yeah, what have I watched? I watched Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, last night, and it's not good. Um, Even though it is a George Pal joint, directed by Michael Anderson, still it's a missed opportunity for me. Peter says, "Hi Terry, good morning, mate. Thanks, mate. Yeah, sunny day here in Melbourne. We're doing fine here, and I'm hoping for even better weather in future. And we're getting to the stage of the year where there's a few festivals on. There's a fire festival that's going to be on at the end of the month in our area where they have a whole bunch of fire displays. Probably good they're doing it this time of year rather than later because there'll be fire bans. But we're doing that. Ian says it's summer here. It's not summer anywhere on the planet, Ian. It's by the spring or autumn. They're your choices. But it can feel like summer. Absolutely. It's been unseasonably warm here. And we've had some really windy and stormy kind of weather unseasonably here because of climate change. And what the experts tell me is that it's not going to go back to what it was ever. Ian says, Northern New South Wales. Yeah, I can see how it would feel like summer in Northern New South Wales. Middle-aged Geeko says, I'm on the iPad watching with no sound. As I can hear you from the room, of course, I get annoying ads on the iPad. Donna Pass Whiskey says, hi, and happy Star Trek Day. And my birthday, 3 years before that. Happy birthday, Donna Pass Whiskey. Hope everything's going well and you're having a great day. Dick says, remember watching Dr. Savage on BBC Two as a kid? My dad taped it. We watched it many times. Yeah, but for an adult, it's not very good. I think it's incredibly self-conscious as a film, and as a producer, George Powell wasn't getting a lot of love from the studios, and so the budget wasn't what you probably needed to do a Doc Savage movie well enough. There's been talk of a Doc Savage movie since then. Shane Black was trying to get one off the ground for a long time, and there's also talk of a streaming series, but that's always up in the air. The only person I could think of to play Doc Savage would be Alan Richman, the guy who plays Reacher in the Reacher series on Amazon. He'd make a good Doc Savage because he's got the physicality for it. But yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I wouldn't be adverse to say an animated Doc Savage series, which could be done really well if the resources were given to it. But yeah, it's one of those intellectual properties that never quite hit with the media, which is a bit of a shame. There are some good Doc Savage comics as well as the novels, of course. And Doc Savage dates back to what, 1930s. So it's definitely got that retro zeitgeist if people want to go ahead and do it. But the 1975 movie just didn't hit for me. It's twee. Let's just call it that. Scars Popper says, I think I heard Dwayne Johnson was tapped for Doc Savage at one point. Probably, but to, to be honest with you, Dwayne Johnson shit the bed with Black Adam. He forced the issue with he forced them to make changes because of his star power, and the movie failed because he's in a weird place where his actual charisma is less than what he thinks his charisma is, and his bankability is less. And I'm going to keep hitting the mic. Let's stop doing that. And his bankability is less than he thinks it is. Middle-aged Geek Girl says, if you hear horrific hacking in the background, that's me. I apologize in advance. It only happens when I move. Just look after yourself, chicken. I'll take care of you after the live stream. But yeah, it's a disappointment, Doc Savage. Let's see what else have I been watching, which I haven't mentioned. I watched a few things. There's a good spy movie from 1970 that was directed by John Huston, The Kremlin Letter, which has got everybody in it. It's got Richard Boone in it. It's got Niall McGuinness. It's got George Sanders in drag. It's a spy movie, and it's a really gritty little spy movie, which doesn't get anywhere near enough love. It's quirky as hell and very, very dark. Max von Sydow's in it as well, and Bibi Anderson. Really great movie. I really want to get a physical copy of that. I watched the digital copy, but I think I want to get a physical copy of The Kremlin Letter. And for me, it's the sort of movie that, say, Imprint or one of those boutique labels should put out a version of because it's a superb little spy thriller. Evil Pixie 96 says, hi from very rainy Morecambe, and now wishing I had Doc Savage's lighter. Yeah, love Morecambe, as I said before. Sorry that it's raining there. Donna Pass Whiskey says 1930s, so it was a newspaper comic. No, it was in a pulp magazine. It was a Doc Savage magazine in the 1930s. Donna Pass Whiskey. Hi Keith, how you doing? Yeah, so I watched the Kremlin Letter, which is kind of cool. Then I watched Q Planes, which is a 1938 spy movie with Laurence Olivier, Ralph Richards, and Valerie Hobson, and it's kind of the precursor to all of the James Bond films, all of the James Bond type films. Very funny. Ralph Richardson plays a really fun spy master in this one. And there's a running gag with him trying to get in touch with his girlfriend, which is fun. So I watched Q Planes. And if you haven't seen Q Planes, find a copy of it somewhere. It's a great little 1930s action sort of comedy. Then I watched Words and Music, which is a musical about Richard Rodgers and Lawrence Hart songwriting team. And it stars Mickey Rooney as Larry Hart. Interesting thing, they totally whitewash him and totally straightwash him because Larry Hart was actually gay. But in the movie, they kind of portray him as an unsuccessful heterosexual, like an incel, which is kind of weird. But I watched that mostly for the musical numbers because it's got some good ones. Yeah, so I'll talk about Beetlejuice now because I've seen Beetlejuice with middle-aged geek girl. Keith says, love Ralph Richardson, one of my favorite of those old British actor nights. Yeah, Ralph Richardson was great in that Q Planes. He knew the tone for the movie a lot better than Olivier did because Olivier is playing the kind of romantic lead. And Richardson knows what kind of movie it is and how absurd it is, essentially. And he just nails it so wonderfully. And I just love what he did in that one. So we saw Beetlejuice. We went down to Reading Cinema where they have the reclining seats. And Middle-Aged Geek Girl and I saw it. Middle-Aged Geek Girl is an incredible Beetlejuice fan. She loves the original so much. But the sequel, which is made like 28 years later, give me a moment. I'm going to find out how long ago it was. And it's always interesting content when people type while they're doing a live stream. Let's have a look here. When did the original Beetlejuice come out? 1988. So it's 1988 to 2024. So it's like 36 years after the first one came out. They made Beetlejuice. And Lydia, the character played by Winona Ryder, is doing a supernatural talk show, and her boyfriend's an asshole. She has a daughter played by Jenna Ortega, who doesn't believe in ghosts. Her boyfriend, by the way, is played by Justin Theroux. And meanwhile, in the afterlife, Beetlejuice is being tracked down by his ex-wife, played by Monica Bellucci. And there's a supernatural detective in the afterlife, played by Willem Dafoe, who used to be an actor who played action roles. So he's basically Clint Eastwood in hell. And Dafoe plays that one right. We've got Catherine O'Hara coming back as the stepmother of the Lydia character. There's good moments in it. There's a thing like the train that takes you to the afterlife, the proper afterlife, is a soul train, so it's full of disco zombies, which I really liked. And there are a few other moments. Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder nail their roles pretty well. I'll watch anything with Monica Bellucci, But there's a few things that are just not right. For a start, they set up big villains. There are 3 big villains in the movie, and the movie just gets rid of them really easily. There's no effort at all to overcoming the villains, which for me is lazy writing and just clumsy writing as well. That doesn't have anything like the impact and charisma of the first one, but then sequels made so many years after the first movie's made very often don't. They're there basically as cash cows for everybody involved. And it was singularly unaffecting for me. A middle-aged geek girl may have her own opinions about that, and I respect them. But for me, it was very unaffecting and very not great. Hi, Bennett. How you doing? So a lot of people are going to see it. A lot of people are going to buy a physical copy of it. It's going to make money regardless of the quality of it, but it's very much an underwhelming sequel, which is disappointing. I would have liked it to go harder on the supernatural and the horror stuff. In the supernatural stuff, there is one character who gets his head bitten off by a shark and goes to the afterlife without a head and shoulders, and that's kind of funny. But for the most part, not really something that you're going to love and you're going to enjoy in the same way you enjoyed the first one. And that brings me up to there are movies that are just made for the money. And yeah, of course, everybody wants to make money with movies, but you really, it's kind of demeaning for the audience when movies are made for that. And you go, yes, you've got to have this fan service in there and that, and you've got to hit these beats. But for the most part, those movies dismay me in some ways. And yeah, it just doesn't hit. Ben Ed says there was a rumor that they had planned Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. That may be a better idea. Yeah, Gidget Goes Hawaiian worked. Why wouldn't one not Beetlejuice? Beetlejuice meets Emmanuel. That would be a good one. But the thing, Adam says, I more or less co-sign your complaints about Beetlejuice too, but I had a blast. Fair enough too. I'm not trying to kind of yuck anybody's yum. But for me, it was a bit unaffecting, which is kind of disappointing. And I picked one of the villains who was a hidden villain almost immediately. I didn't tell Middle Aged Geek because I didn't want to ruin her ride. But that hidden villain I picked up pretty fast. Donna Pass Whiskey says, was there anything to explain the absence of Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin? Yeah, they went on to the proper afterlife because the place where Beetlejuice lives and all of the monstrous stuff is kind of like a limbo. But the other two went on to whatever the afterlife is, and the movie doesn't make any assumptions about that. Remzar says, watching from hot SoCal, only 99 degrees Fahrenheit now at 2:15 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, I can handle that. I'm a warm weather person. I can handle 99 degrees. Middle-aged geek girl would melt like the witch in Wizard of Oz. But for me, it'd work. That kind of temperature is something that I really enjoy. But yeah, I mean, Beetlejuice too, everybody's got their own viewpoint on it. But for me, I would have liked it to have gone harder on the supernatural horror aspect of it. People can handle it now. In a world where Art the Clown exists, you can go a bit harder onto the horror in a Beetlejuice sequel. And they just didn't. Maybe that's the suits. Maybe it's Tim Burton getting old and lazy. But yeah, it just didn't work for me, which I'm kind of disappointed with. And that then lets me segue into upcoming movies I'm looking forward to and upcoming movies I am not looking forward to. I'm going to have a sip of water before I do that. Now, there's a whole bunch of movies that are coming out in the next 6 months or so that I'm really kind of looking forward to. I want to see the new Superman that James Gunn's doing. A lot of people are cynical about superhero franchises, but I'll be okay. I'll just give it a go. And I know James Gunn's got the sensibility and the knowledge to do a superhero narrative really well. So I'm looking forward to that. There's always going to be little leaks come out with these new upcoming films, like there is going to be with the new Captain America movie and all of the other big tentpole movies, which aren't really tentpole movies anymore. They don't stand out of the crowd as much as they used to before COVID. But I'm looking forward to that. It might be fun. Actually, looking forward to the Captain America movie where you've got Harrison Ford playing Red Hulk. I'm there for that. That's going to be a bit of fun. Harrison Ford playing a Marvel supervillain. I know middle-aged geek girl likes Harrison Ford a lot, but we'll see how that goes. Donna Whiskey says, "Wonder if they just offered a huge pile of money to Tim Burton when the play was successful." Yeah, they wouldn't have had to offer Tim Burton that much. His career is kind of in the shallows. But they put together the package. They got Winona Ryder on board. They got Michael Keaton on board. They got Catherine O'Hara, and they got Jenna Ortega, and all of those guys. So they put together the package and they made the movie. The script's actually by Goff and Miller, who, amongst other things, did the Wednesday TV series with Jenna Ortega. I wonder how long she's going to be playing teenagers for, because she's not a teenager anymore, but she keeps getting these roles where she plays teenagers because she is of small stature. Let's see. She's 21, so I suppose she can play teenagers for a while yet. But I'm always wary of people who aren't teenagers playing teenagers. It just seems weird. So, yeah, let's see. What else am I looking forward to? There's another Paddington movie coming out. Paddington 2 is one of the best movies ever made. It's just hits on every note. And there's a Paddington 3 coming out where Paddington goes to South America with the family to look for his auntie who raised him. So I'm looking forward to Paddington 3. Paddington 2 just hit. Paddington itself is good. And I'm looking forward to Paddington 3. Problem is, I'm going to go see it at the cinema. And I'm going to go to see Paddington 3 in the cinema, which is going to be full of kids. Maybe I've got to find a session where there's not going to be full of kids so I can enjoy and watch Paddington 3 without seeming like I should be on someone's watch list. But let me know if you've seen Paddington 1 or Paddington 2, because if you haven't, you should check those ones out. Great character actors playing rather than just playing roles. They're actually playfully playing in the first two Paddington movies. And it's they're just a joy. Speaking of which, the trailer for Paddington 3 has Paddington getting his passport photo taken in a photo booth. And when middle-aged geek girl and I went to see Beetlejuice, they had a photo booth. And I got photos of myself taken in the photo booth. So there's me mugging for the photos. I gave middle-aged geek girl one copy of this, and I kept one for myself. Maybe I should make one of those my thumbnail picture at some stage, because I think they're a bit of fun. So yeah, Paddington 2, definitely something I'll watch. Now this one's not for everybody, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm hoping that Umbrella send me a copy of it when it comes out on physical media. Terrifier 3 is coming out, the fourth movie starring Art the Clown, who is the new Freddy Krueger in so many ways and is so much more transgressive than Freddy Krueger ever was. Art the Clown is monstrous, but there's a really dark humor to the Terrifier movies, which I appreciate. I've got Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2, and the other movie that Art the Clown was in, which is a portmanteau horror film. But the Terrifier movies are not for everybody. The gore is chronically realistic, and it verges on torture porn in some ways. But I like them. I mean, they challenge me and they stretch my idea of what's acceptable cinema. But I kind of like Art the Clown in a weird way. Monstrous clowns have been in cinema for a long time, and Art the Clown just lifts it to a different level. Has the chat stopped, or are people just hanging off my every word? Somebody in chat tell me whether the chat's frozen or not, because um, Dick Power says, could market those strips of pictures of Terry Talks movies bookmarks. Yeah, you probably could, but I'm not sure there's a big market for it. I'll have to talk to middle-aged geek girl about that, because she's running her Redbubble and her Etsy store with things like that. Adam says, I'm still here. Good, cool. That's it. We've got 27 people on the live stream, which is pretty good. I'm not unhappy with that. There's also a new version of Wolfman coming out, directed by Lee Whannell. Let me go back to chat for a second. Ramsay says, I didn't know this photo booths are still around. Very cool. Photo booths were in the central themes of Emily. Yeah, it was. Carol would have one, says Dick. Of wow, I've got a fan base. Yeah, so Wolfman. There's a Lee Winnell movie based on Wolfman, and that's coming out soon. I think it's by A24. I'm not too sure, but a lot of people there's an initial image of the Wolfman, and a lot of people have been very dismissive of it. But I kind of like it because Lee Winnell's the guy who did that version of the Invisible Man with was it Elizabeth Moss? I think it was, which really twisted the Invisible Man into a very modern kind of horror film. So I'm interested to see what Lee Winnell, who's an Australian by the way, does with Wolfman. I don't think it's going to be Lon Chaney Jr. I don't even think it's going to be Henry Holt, but I think it's going to be an interesting twist on a very old franchise. Hi, Franny, how you doing? Middle East Girl says, "I'm back. I had Nurse Luna on your chest until she decided to chew your hand and your very sore fingers." Yeah, Luna is around. One of the possibilities is she'll jump on my chest while I'm doing the live stream, which is a definite possibility with that cat. She's got very snuggly as she's turned into an adult cat rather than a young cat. And there's that possibility that Luna may show up. What else am I looking forward to? I want to see Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, which I know a lot of people have really dismissed and it's tanked and it's not probably going to get a wide release, but I'm interested in seeing it because I like Coppola's movies. And the fact that he put a lot of money of his own into making this weird science fiction fantasy about New York City movie, I'm interested to see what Coppola does with it and whether it works or not. I will review it when I do see it, but I'm not sure when it's getting a release broadly here in Australia. But when it does, I definitely want to see it. Friday says, checking on a friend who had to brave the trains on a Sunday getting back to London as all the trains went stupid. They're home safely now. Well, I'm glad your friend got home safely, Friday. Adam says, my thoughts exactly. Lee Winnell is doing radical reinventions of the Universal monsters. I trust him with Wolfman. I'm stoked for it. Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's an interesting kind of creative guy, and he's flying under the radar. Even though he did work on the Saw movies, he's in this first Saw movie. Coming to think of it, he's definitely doing some low key, interesting stuff. And the Invisible Man is a really fantastic reinvention of that particular franchise. Middle-aged kid girl says, I have Canva and I'm teaching myself it in Procreate. I've offered to make Terry designs for merch on the channel. He'll have to pay me, of course. I pay you all the time. I buy you ice creams. I make coffees for you every morning. You get paid, middle-aged good girl. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Let's see, what else am I looking forward to? There's a movie called The Treatment, which has Demi Moore in it. And it's a kind of low-key science fiction movie about the quest for youth. Now, I know a few people have seen it at the Melbourne International Film Festival, and people I respect have said it's a good movie. It is coming out to the Sun Cinema, one of the cinemas I go to. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm going to do it for a Science Fiction Saturday because I get, with the Science Fiction Saturdays that I do, I get a lot of people saying that old science fiction movies are better than new ones because they're locked into that nostalgia trap. Yeah, I'm as nostalgic as anybody. I'll watch old things all the time. But I think it's a mistake to just watch old things, to not make yourself open to new things and new kinds of movies and new iterations of old ideas. I really like the fact that I'm staying open to new stuff as well as appreciating and contextualizing the old stuff. I love that I'm able to do that. And I find it a bit sad when people just go, oh, I only watch old movies. You want to smack them on the head with the newspaper like they're a naughty dog when they do that. But I think I'm going to enjoy the substance. I hear good things about it. I'm not looking too far into spoilers. So I want to go in fairly fresh and I will review it when I do get the chance to see it. Keith F says, I hope the new Wolfman movie is better than the 2010 one. Yeah, the 2010 one leaned too much into nostalgia for the old Wolfman stuff. And even though I like Benicio del Toro and Tony Hopkins was in it as well, I don't think it landed. I've actually got it on Blu-ray, but it was a bit of a missed opportunity. Dick says Carol's going to have to go to bed, so she'll miss the rest of the live stream. Night, night, Carol. Sweet dreams. Have a good one, and thanks for being part of things. Peter says, good movies are being made all the time. It's just a matter of finding them among the dross. Absolutely, Peter. That's part of what I try to do. When there's something good that's new, I'll try to review it if I possibly can, and let people know that it's cool or what to watch. I'm sorry, but middle-aged good girl's coughing, the poor thing. She's letting Luna in and out of the house. But yeah, it's good things are out there. I'm willing to filter and let people know which good things are good and which are just hyped. And yeah, that's part of what I do with the channel. Ramsar says Cobbler's Megalopolis is due to open in Southern California on the 27th of September. We'll definitely watch it in IMAX theater for the visuals. My expectations are low. Yeah, I'm not going in with any expectations if I see Megalopolis or if I get a disc of it or something like that. With movies like this, which are hit and miss depending on how people's sensibilities as far as movie viewing is concerned, it's good to have no expectations. Just go in and experience the movie as cold as you can and just see what it is and work it out for yourself. That's what I try to do as much as possible with many movies. Franny says, and lots of screen noises. She says, I've been great shopping month for me. Headline item was a Blu-ray copy of Phantom of the Paradise. In the shop I live above, they may have been much take my money. Yeah, I've actually wanted to rewatch my copy of Phantom of the Paradise. I've got the Arrow Blu-ray of it myself. I saw it in the cinema. I've got the vinyl of it. By the way, the next video I'm doing is me going through my movie-related vinyl collection, which I haven't played in way too long. But I went through and found a whole bunch of stuff movie-related, and I'm going to just talk about the records that I've got that are movie-related. So that's the next video I'm doing. Dick says, I can hear Luna in the background. Yeah, she's a noisy little thing. Ben Ed says, Jack Nicholson had a good take on the role in Wolf. I'm not that in love with Wolf. I haven't watched it in a long time. But when I saw it, I found it a bit unaffecting. And it was just Jack Nicholson being a naughty boy for me. But again, people's opinions vary. Evil Pixie says, in the first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Captain Pike was watching the day the Earth stood still. Like the reference to the old while watching you. Yeah, Strange New Worlds really hits for me. I really like it. I like the ensemble. I like the optimism and the tongue in cheek and the quality of it. The writing is good in Strange New Worlds, and it's not getting enough love. Middle-aged Gigo says, "Yeah, Luna wanted out again. She's a moany little cat at times, particularly this time of the morning. She settles down later in the day, but in the morning she'll want to go in and out of the house 15 times to make sure the world's still there, and she does that." But the things I'm not looking forward to, I've got a list of that as well. And I've seen a whole bunch of trailers because I look at trailer compilations on YouTube and go, yes, no, what the hell? Gladiator 2, Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2, which has got Denzel in it, Pedro Pascal's in it as well. I don't care. I didn't like Gladiator 1. I think that Ridley Scott, for all of the hype of Ridley Scott, I've never seen a Ridley Scott movie that really made me feel anything, even Blade Runner. Visuals are nice, but very unaffecting director emotionally. There's nothing, even in Gladiator 1, where he goes to the afterlife with his family, blah, blah, blah. Just didn't hit for me. I think that people respect and admire and like his movies, but for me, I find them really unaffecting. And Gladiator 2, again, a cash cow. And yes, it's going to have updated special effects with people riding rhinoceri in the Gladiator, in the Colosseum, and that kind of thing. doesn't hit for me. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay. There's streaming series to do this kind of shit. Why make Gladiator 2? Cash cow, that's why. There's nothing at the end of the first movie that cries out for a sequel or cries out for a continuation of the story at all. And I think that's the way it's good to evaluate sequels. At the end of the first movie, is there something you wanted that wasn't there, or something that was hinted at that wasn't there? Is there a continuation that cries out for a second movie? If the answer is no, then the sequel is definitely just a cash cow. And I'm less tolerant of that than I may have been in the past. Um, there's Mufasa the Lion King, a live action kind of photorealistic version of the story of the Lion King's father. Now, I've got my issues with the Lion King anyway. It was stolen from Kimber the White Lion, the original Japanese anime. All of the Lion King is stolen from that and stolen from Hamlet, of course. But yeah, none of it ever hit for me. And I've got no interest at all in seeing the life story of the father of a franchise that was stolen from Japanese animators and Japanese creative people without compensation or acknowledgement. It just doesn't work for me. Anybody out there like The Lion King more than they like Kimber the White Lion? Be interested to find out. There's an animated Lord of the Rings movie coming up called Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. I never, to be honest with you, never dug Tolkien, never dug the Lord of the Rings movies. There weren't any characters in there that really engaged me. Yes, it moved special effects and movies forward. When a workshop came out of nowhere and did fantastic work on all the Lord of the Rings movies. But Tolkien never hit for me. And so I've got no interest in this animated movie, which has got very basic kind of animation. Not a great thing for me. And so I've got no interest in an animated movie continuing The Lord of the Rings. Friday says, picked up an eclectic mix of hardback books from my interest, photography, steam trains, lingerie. Unmentionables, the history of lingerie has a lot of film reference photos, which clued me in. That'd be interesting. The film Baba Yaga, the Devil Witch, based on the Italian comic Valentina. Is that the one with Carol Baker in it, Friday? I think it may be. Because, yeah, I remember Baba Yaga, the movie, having seen it when, like in the 70s in the cinema. Dick says, not seeing something about Star Trek Strange New Worlds just before my time. I found 14 Blu-rays for $2, for £2 of various new Star Trek shows. Yeah, Star Trek Strange New Worlds works. Peter says, agreed about Ridley Scott. The guy's a good craftsman rather than a great artist. Absolutely. Yeah, finally says, yep, Carol Baker. Carol Baker did some weird and wonderful movies in Italy in the 1960s after the Hollywood studio thing didn't work for her. And I think she's a much better actress than she was ever given credit for. She did a movie called Sylvia with George Maharis in it and Peter Lawford, which is crazily underrated. I've got a DVD copy of that in a Carol Baker collection. And it's got an interesting arc for the main character in that one. Really, I think her career should have been more elevated than it ever was because, let's face it, Hollywood studios are run by assholes. Always have been. Hopefully will not always be. But for the most part, up until at least Weinstein, Hollywood studios were run by pricks. And her career just didn't hit for that reason. Remza says Ridley Scott's three best movies, The Duelist, Alien, and Blade Runner, totally butchered Napoleon, and now a director's cut's on Apple TV Plus. Yeah, I want to see Napoleon at some stage, but I'm not yearning to see it. And Alien, I've kind of got mixed feelings about Alien because I agree with Harlan Ellison. Alien is basically a haunted house movie in space. That's what it is. And elevating it above that, maybe it needs a reality check. Franny says, my version of Baba Yaga is the director's extended edition. I'd like to see that. That'd be great to see. But yeah, Carol Baker, totally underrated. There are any number of actresses who are underrated. Stella Stevens was underrated. She could do comedy. She did drama. She could do pathos. She was in The Ballad of Cable Hogue, the Peckinpah movie with Jason Robards. She was fantastic in that. Franny says, the Baba Yaga was produced by Shameless. The listing on the extras looks good. Enjoy it, absolutely. Carol Baker, underrated as hell. But other movies I'm not looking forward to. Goonies 2 is coming out. They're doing a sequel to Goonies with some of the original actors in it. Now, I only ever saw Goonies like 10 years ago because it came out here, but I wasn't really aligned with seeing that kind of movie at the time. And when I eventually saw Goonies, I went, hey, okay. But they're doing Goonies 2 because a cash cow. Having the Goonies as middle-aged adults going on an adventure. Just don't do it. It's going to make money because everybody will suck on that nostalgia tit. But yeah, why? Franny says, haven't had a chance to watch Baba Yaga yet, but looking forward to it. Absolutely. And she says, Goonies with extra Thanos. Yes, Goonies with extra Thanos. Was Carol Baker in Marnie? That was Tippi Hedren. Keith. Middle-aged geek girl says, you're doing great without me. I'm going to close the iPad now and just watch your handsome face on my TV. Bye, everyone. Bye, middle-aged geek girl. Adam says, as an 80s kid, I was just who was just pleased with Beetlejuice 2. Do not need more Goonies. Dick says, get better soon, Sally. Evil Pixie says, when I was 7, staying with family in Italy, found a stack of Valentina comics, among others. Have to say they warped my fragile little mind. I can understand why they would. And yeah, Italian, they were fumetti, weren't they? Italian comics are that kind of fumetti. I've got a couple of fumetti around here, and they are quite adult and deliciously graphic. So fumetti are really interesting for me. And just like Giallo books are. Franny says, I want to get some of the Valentina comics. Give me a sec. I'm going to see whether my usual place for getting naughty editions of things have any Valentina comics. And I'll post a link if they do. No, they don't. So forget what I just said. Gary Can says, I heard great things about Rebel Ridge on Netflix. I'm not familiar with it, but I will look it up. American crime action film. Who's in it? Don Johnson. He's still around. It's another one of those vigilante things from the look of things. Former Marine bikes into town. I enjoy it. Definitely enjoy it. But for me, that one's not going to hit. I've seen a lot of movies like that. The best one of those person on a motorcycle rides into town movies is an Australian movie with Deborah Lee Finesse in it called Shame. That one hits. That is a gritty little movie from about 1988, 1990. No, the actress who played Sean Connery's sister in Marnie. Give me a sec. Let's see. No, that was Diane Baker. It wasn't Carol Baker. So there you go. Mark's former sister-in-law. It says here. So it was Diane Baker. Yeah, Diane Baker. She was a rich person. I think she came from a rich family and dabbled in acting. I think. Let me have a look here. Yeah, she was a nepo baby. Her, Mother was an actress who appeared in Marx Brothers movies. But what else am I not looking forward to? That's it in my list. Anything people here are looking forward to or not looking forward to coming up in cinema. I mean, there are other things as well, but I just haven't put them on my list. Has anybody seen anything that's really good lately? And suddenly I've gone silent. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. Back on track. I'm going to tell you the cool stuff that's coming up from my favorite producers. Peter says, on the subject of naughty comic adaptations, am I familiar with The Perils of Gwendolyn and the Land of UK? Yep, I've seen it. And apart from the busty substances and the unclad women, not a lot there. I mean, I was in favour of that because I grew up watching gratuitous nudity in cinema, but that one didn't really go. No idea if it'll deliver, says Adam, but the teaser trailer for The Monkey looks awesome. Give me a look. I'm going to look up The Monkey. Okay, yeah, the Stephen King adaptation. Directed by Os Perkins with Theo James. James Wan's producing it, so that might be worthwhile. Let me have a look here. The Monkey, the film. Vintage toy monkey in the attic is haunted, and a cursed toy movie. Yeah, I'd go with that. Tatiana Maslany's in it as well, so it looks like it's going to be a bit of fun. Yeah, low key, I want to see that one. Gary Kern says, I'm not looking forward to Joker 2. Yeah, I've seen the extended trailer of Joker 2, and I'll watch it, but I want to see whether it pinches from other movies as much as the first Joker movie did. Peter says, I did double feature for a friend of Gwendolyn and Adele Blanc-Sec recently. Adele Blanc-Sec really works. The Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec. Fantastic movie. So much in-jokes of French culture in there. Some of which I understood, some of which I didn't. I probably understood more than a lot of people. But an anachronistic Zizi Jean-Mer reference was a lot of fun. But yeah, I've done a video about Adele Blanc-Sec way back. And yeah, that one works for me. That kind of steampunk French milieu thing really works for me. Gary says, New Salem's Lot might be good. Do we need a New Salem's Lot? Again, it's a cash cow. It's not something that yearned to be remade. King says, I was going to see Alien Romulus, but I found out Ian Holm was in it. I was disgusted. Yeah, I can understand that. Alien Romulus, from the reviews I've seen, is a greatest hits compilation of the Alien movies. Franny says, love Adele Blanc-Sec, wish there was more. Absolutely. The comics are worth finding if you can do that. The Adele Blanc-Sec comics are real fun. They're different than the movie in significant ways, but they're very much tongue-in-cheek and they're a lot of fun. Ramsar says, I watched an excellent documentary on the late great maestro Ennio Morricone on Amazon Prime. Really gets into his music and how he adds to scenes. Morricone was so varied too. He would do like shitty little action films and then do some great grand piece of cinema and alternate them back to back. He had such range as a film composer where he'd make marvelous music for trashy films and elevate them by doing it. D. Lee says, seen good recently, Shooting Stars, a 1927 silent British classic about film stars, including a less than likable character clearly based on Chaplin. That might be worth tracking down. I'll have to check that out. There's another Chaplin wannabe in Sunset, the movie with Bruce Willis and James Garner. You've got a Chaplin surrogate played by Malcolm McDowell in that movie, who's a monster. So that one's worth tracking down if you can. COVID and Confirm says Alien Romulus was shite. The whole mistake was cool with his likeness being used, but the film is severely lacking. I will probably watch it at some stage, but I'll wait for digital. Captain Laser says Megalopolis heard it was a messed up production, but still intrigued. I'm going to see it. I'll go in as cold as I can. I know a little bit about it, but I'm going to go in and just watch it and see what Coppola does with it. Don't have any expectations, which is probably a healthy place to go into it with, but I will see it. Kevin Confidence says Megalopolis is tracking to make $5 million on its opening weekend. Yeah, that's damn low. But it's a Coppola movie, so like any other Coppola movie, it may well have a long tail, and people will see it in different ways as time goes on. So, with the name value of Francis Ford Coppola, I think it may be okay. It won't probably do big money, but I think there'll be a steady trickle of money coming in as that movie moves on to other formats. So that's what I suspect. Adam says Alien Romulus was indeed a greatest hits comp, but had enough new juice to satisfy this fan. It does legit add a few new spikes to the wheel. Yeah, fair enough, but there are franchises I like and franchises that don't hit for me. The Alien movies were okay, but they're not a franchise that I hold close to my heart. And I'm sounding, crotchety and cynical in this live stream. I'm sorry, but there are aspects of the movie making machine at the moment that lean people towards being crotchety and cynical. Kevin Caulfield says, I have a friend who worked on the film. She loved the experience. I'll be seeing it. The reviews are poo poo. That's about Megalopolis, I assume. Yeah, okay. I'll see it. I like a couple of films. I even like his musicals. He made 2 musicals, by the way. Let me know if you know what they are, because I like both of Coppola's musicals. Ramzar says, watch 2 great sad Polish movies, Ida from 2013 and Cold War 2018. Both were directed by Pavel Pawlowski. Adam says, keep the cynicism coming, you're not wrong. Well, I try to be honest in my cynicism and honest about how I feel about things. And I think cynicism as a universal thing, there are people who are cynical about a lot of things. But I think more accurately, I'd call it skepticism, because I think cynicism is an easy thing to do. You just dismiss everything if you're cynical. But I think skeptical has an analytical aspect to it, which is probably a lot healthier. D. Lee says, new films are good. Hundreds of Beavers. I want to see Hundreds of Beavers. Dialogueless comedy that nods to Keaton, Warner Brothers cartoons, Wes Anderson, and James Bond films. I want to see Hundreds of Beavers. I want to sit down with middle-aged geek girl and see that. One from the Heart will be one of them, says Dick. And Gary says, one from the Heart. I'll give you the other one before anybody else does. Finian's Rainbow, where Tommy Steele plays a leprechaun. And there's a scene where Keenan Wynn, who is a Southern politician, turns into a black man in blackface. But that aspect of it's problematic, but there's aspects to Finian's Rainbow I really like as well. Franny says, I'm getting to the point where I'm really sick of Hollywood beating the death of 80s science fiction franchises. Can't they do something new? Aren't people bored with aliens and predators, etc.? Franny, there's good stuff, like all innovative stuff, comes from the edges. A24 is doing edgy stuff. A whole bunch of other smaller companies are doing the interesting, juicy science fiction, fantasy, horror films. Middle of Hollywood is a turd burger. Kevin Copfilm says, Cuckoo was the most interesting film I saw in the cinema this year. I'm looking forward to it. Captain Laser says, One from the Heart, which bombed, I still enjoyed it, but I like the unusual. Yeah, One from the Heart, I like. I think it's not the best movie in the world, but it comes from an honest place. And I like that. But Finian's Rainbow I like because it's based on a 1940s socialist fantasy musical that was on Broadway. And it does have things to say about capitalism, which I appreciate. Hence the thumbnail for this live stream. Peter says, just watched Stormy Weather 1943. Weird to see black people in blackface, but I liked it. Op shop by. Stormy Weather's great. Is that the one where it's got John Bubbles singing Shine? I think it might be. Damien says, quick morning, Terry, due to needs food. Hi, Damien, and I hope everything's going well for you guys. I know a bit of a rough trot at the moment, but thanks for dropping in, mate. Appreciate it. Sorry, my nose is dripping a bit. I may have a touch of what middle-aged geek girl has, but hopefully to a lesser degree. Yeah, Stormy Weather is great. And Cabin in the Sky is great. There are a whole bunch of those musicals made with black people that really work. Dick says, sooner or later we will get a Flight of the Navigator 2 and Last Starfighter 2. Let's hope not. Don't need them. I saw the Last Starfighter in the cinema. I went to a press preview in the State Theatre in Sydney. If you want to look up the State Theatre Sydney, it's the most grandiose flea pit you've ever seen in your life. It looks like you could put a swashbuckling movie in that place. But that's where I saw the Last Starfighter. Damien likes Cabin in the Sky. Yeah, Cabin in the Sky works. And Ethel Waters singing Taking a Chance on Love in Cabin in the Sky is just movie magic. She is fantastic in that film. Okay, Umbrella and Imprint releases. Here we go. Thanks for getting me back on track, COVID. They're doing a bunch of cool stuff. Things like the Australian action film from the 1980, The Chain Reaction. They're putting out a Blu-ray and CD. They're putting the music out on CD with it in the standard edition. Plus, there's a collector's edition with art cards and a poster. That one's interesting because it's mostly an action film. There's a movie from 2009, which I've talked about on the channel, but I'm going to review the box set when it comes out, called Triangle with Melissa George, which is a time loop movie, which really hits. I think this one is crazily underrated. And if you haven't seen Triangle, you might want to pick up one of the editions that Umbrella do on that because it's really great. They're also putting out Time Crimes, the Spanish time loop movie, I think. They're putting out Time Crimes. I think they are. Yeah, they're putting out Time Crimes. Eyes Without a Face, the George Franju movie, is getting a Blu-ray and 4K release from Umbrella. And the price for give you a 4K and a Blu-ray for $60 Australian, which I think with the extras on it is great. So Time Crimes is coming out in let's see, Sasquatch Summer, which is about a family of Sasquatches. I hear great things about that. Haven't seen it, but that's coming out. A neo western called The Last Stop in Yuma County is coming out on Blu-ray from Umbrella. The original Open Your Eyes, Abreza Ojo, which Vanilla Sky was based on. It's from 1997. That's coming out on a Blu-ray edition. There's a Full Moon box set, which they're putting out of Full Moon movies. Doll Man, Demonic Toys, all of those kind of movies are coming out in a box set from Umbrella, which I'm looking forward to. What are the movies? Doll Man, Demonic Toys, Doll Man versus Demonic Toys, Demonic Toys 2. All those Albert Pume kind of movies from the 1990s. They're putting out, Umbrella's putting out those. What else have we got? And just a bunch of really weird and wild cult films coming out, which I'm looking forward to. I will be reviewing them on the channel, and I'll watch them before I review the box sets. So what else have we got there? Absolutely. Oh, yeah, this one. This is a killer one. You're going to love this. They're putting out Absolute Power, the ultimate cut of Caligula. Now, the interesting thing about that is this is the Caligula with Malcolm McDowell and Helen Mirren in it. They've redone the movie with none of the footage that was in any previous edition. They used alternate cuts to put together a decent version of Caligula telling the story, but without the Bob Guccione hardcore porn stuff in it. So that's coming up. They're putting it out on 4K. 5 different cuts of the movie across 1 4K and 3 Blu-rays. There's a hardback book, 200 pages long, about the movie. Whole bunch of stuff there. This is the ultimate edition of Caligula, which I'm looking forward to seeing. I knew there was a good movie kind of locked into there somewhere. And this cut, from everything I understand, is the edition you want to have for Caligula. Let's go back to the chat for a little bit. Franny says, after my other main interest, board games, had a great live stream normally about board games and films came up and persuaded a bunch of people to watch. It happened one night. Absolutely valid. It happened one night's great. KN says, I think a remake of The Odd Couple with the Xenomorph and Predator sharing a house should be good. No. Stormy Weather has a fantastic dance sequence featuring Nicholas Brothers. Yep, and Cab Calloway. Peter says, Cab Calloway, Lena Horne, Fat Swallow, and Nicholas Brothers. Absolutely. Damien saw the chain reaction in cinema on getting just a Blu-ray and the CD. That's valid, Damien, absolutely. COVID and Cuffham says, Last Stop in Yuma County is excellent. Eyes Without a Face is a classic. Absolutely. And my friend Nadine is doing one of the commentary bits for Eyes Without a Face. I've already got a Blu-ray of Eyes Without a Face, but I'm upgrading on this one. Rams, I said, watch an outstanding Korean movie, Memories of Murder from 2003, directed by Bong Joon-ho. Perhaps his best movie, and in your opinion, better than The Host, Snowpiercer, and Parasite. I'll agree about Snowpiercer, but I still like The Host and Parasite. Franny says, I wish 4 Men had done more Dr. Mordred. Yeah, Dr. Mordred kicks. I like Dr. Mordred. COVID and Cuffham said, yeah, I got many of those Umbrella releases, Caligula, Chain Reaction, etc. Ramsay said, I watched Mars Express, which is just a great adult animated science fiction movie. Thanks for the recommendation. My pleasure. Yeah, Mars Express works for me. Kayan says, Terry is talking more about nudie films since Middle-Aged Geek Girl logged off. Middle-Aged Geek Girl can hear me, so I don't mind talking about nudie films with Middle-Aged Geek Girl listening. Part of my cinema background is watching nudie films. I even like watching nudist camp films from the 1960s. Friday says, I love the crazy but oddly compelling theory that Snowpiercer is a follow-up on from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Glass Elevator. Yeah, there's some weird theories about things out there. But yeah, Snowpiercer just didn't work for me. I understand the metaphor for capitalist society that Snowpiercer is, but I never bought the world building in Snowpiercer. Haven't seen the series, but the movie itself. So what else is coming up that I want to mention? But Eyes Without a Face is the killer one for me. I'm looking forward to that so much. Let's have a look. Get out of that. Imprint are doing some interesting stuff. They're doing an ultimate edition of Never Ending Story. Imprint are. But yeah, COVID and Caulfield says I'm on the upcoming Imprint Suspiria 4K. I've done a video. If you want to type into my channel Suspiria, I did a video about why I got triggered by Suspiria for about 30 years. And there is a reason. But I've watched it now and I appreciate it as a movie. Absolutely. I haven't seen this remake, but I like the original. Yeah, Never Ending Story is just gangbusters good. It's got so many extras, it's just crazy. These are all the December ones are doing. Never Ending Story, A Bridge Too Far on a limited edition 4K, Convoy, the Sam Peckinpah movie, which I've already got a Blu-ray of, and The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert on 4K. So Priscilla's getting a 4K release, which is fantastic. There is a TV movie of the week collection coming out. I won't go into the details of that. There's a directed by Roman Polanski box set, which I haven't asked for a review copy of because I disapprove of Polanski for fairly obvious reasons. Let's have a look here. There's an Ultimate Edition of the Blair Witch Project movies, and that's a superior 4K coming out, which is fantastic. Let's have a look here. The big one for me, and shows where my heart is. There's an Impact Tales of Adventure Collection #4. Now, I've reviewed the other Tales of Adventure collections, which had some great movies in them. Things like Sands of the Kalahari are in there. But the fourth version of that is all movie serials. King of the Rocket Men, Flying Disc Man from Mars, The Invisible Monster, Radar Men from the Moon, Zombies of the Stratosphere, and the mysterious Dr. Satan, and Commando Cody, Sky Marshal of the Universe. So you got Commando Cody there and King of the Rocket Men. All of those movie serials are coming out on Blu-ray from from Imprint. I apologize, from Imprint. And I'm looking forward to them because I will binge the shit out of those. Let's have a look at the chat again. Keith says, should Springtime for Hitler be extended to a full-length movie? No. There are two versions of the producers. I think that's enough. D. Lee says, speaking of Caligula, Anthony Starr as Homelander in The Boys is basically playing the John Hurt version of Caligula with a touch of Norman Bates. Anthony Starr is doing great work in The Boys. That guy is such an underrated actor. I think they should give him all the roles in all the movies. Fantastic actor doing gangbusters stuff with a character who's unprecedented in some ways. Gary Ken says, Paper Moon's coming out on 4K. Interesting. Bogdanovich did some great work. Ken says, I watched Michael Flatley's Blackbird during the week. Pretty bad. He's the worst thing about it. Yeah, that was a vanity project where he wanted to play James Bond. I hear incredibly bad things about it. COVID in Coldform says, I love Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. So do I. Interesting thing is I saw Priscilla in Broken Hill, where part of it was filmed, around the corner from the pub at Broken Hill, where the team stayed during the movie. And everybody else in the audience was extras in the movie. So I actually saw it there. And that bit where they stop the bus and are looking over this vast desert plain is the Monday plain just west of Broken Hill. And the day before I saw Priscilla, we went out to the Monday plain. And it's amazing. The road drops off this escarpment and there's flat land for 1,000 kilometers ahead of it, literally 1,000 kilometers ahead of it. Magnificent movie. Did a great job of showing gay culture as it was then. And that was the era when I was going and I was a crowd marshal in the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, keeping the crowds back. Just fantastic film and so important. Peter says, New Suspiria left me yawning. Too much dance and not enough horror. Damien says, Darling from Umbrella is much better than the UK edition. Yeah, Darling really worked for me. I enjoyed that movie a lot. Ramsar said, I watched Kalki 2898 AD, and it was quite good but not great. It's a bit all over the place with science fiction, Hindu mythology, but great ending and looking forward to the next chapter. My pleasure, Ramsar. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it at the level of knowing that it was coming from a different culture and with a different kind of look at things. Frank says, no fighting devil dogs or as George Lucas suppressed that. Darth Vader is such a rip from the bad guy. Yeah, I mean, Lucas nicked things all over the place for Star Wars. Yeah, thanks, Kayan. They're restoring the bus. Yeah, they are. They found the bus from Priscilla, and that's getting restored. Damien says, that set of adventures #4. I'm really looking forward to it too. I remember watching those serials from Fredbear Breakfast Go-Go as a kid. Yeah, the serials are great. And I've never seen them on anything but a bad copy of them. So any upgrade that can come out, including Blu-ray, I'm there for. D. Lee says, Darth Vader's a glorified henchman, odd job with a vacuum cleaner casing on his head. Yeah, it's really weird because, Darth Vader was supposed to be this big bad in the first 3 movies. And he never hit for me as a bad guy. And then the prequels come out. And we find out he's just a sook and an incel mummy's boy, and you think that's not how you do a villain. You got to give a villain a solid arc, and you got to give a villain gravitas, and you've got to go. This is why this guy blew up a planet. Never happens. Franny says, for what it's worth, Kalki 2898 is now available on Prime in the UK. Cool. I'm glad it's getting a wider audience. I think it does some fascinating things, and the world building in there is next level for me. Just worked. And I'm going to have to get back to the Village Cinema in Sunshine, where they're showing all these interesting Indian action films, because I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed Kill, which is kind of Die Hard on a train in India, which is an interesting film as well. Time to get on to the second bottle of water. And that's something I learned about 1998. One of the things I learned, I was reviewing movies for a website that my friend Ali ran, which is now archived. Dick's got to go. Thanks a lot, Dick. Appreciate that, mate. Appreciate you being part of the live stream. Take care of yourself. But yeah, 1998, I'm reviewing movies for my friend Ali's website, Festival. Not doing it well. I reread those reviews and I cringe. But I was watching Career Girls. I think it's a Mike Lee movie. It might be. Hang on, let me double check, because I want to get this right. Career Girls, yeah, Mike Lee movie. Catherine Cartledge and Lynn Stedman. And it's totally outside my comfort zone. It's about two young women who share a flat at university, and it's all about the interpersonal relationships. I love the movie. It's a great movie, and the characters are all fantastic. The arc of the movie works for me. It just hit for me. And it was totally alien to the kind of movies I've watched previously. And it was then that I realized that reviewing movies, I gained so much by stepping outside my comfort zone. And that, for me, is something that I brought to the channel, where I will do all the stuff that people expect me to do on Science Fiction Saturday, but I'll try to find things outside that as well. But I love it when I step out of my comfort zone and something blasts me in the face and blows me away that I wasn't expecting to blow me away, and that isn't my usual kind of movie. That's stuff I live for. It really does make me better at what I do, make me more knowledgeable about cinema. And seeing these Indian action films did that for me. And seeing movies of a high quality that maybe aren't going to get a release here in Australia, or maybe aren't getting enough love, or show up in odd corners of streaming services, really worked for me. That's one of the reasons why I get frustrated by people who will only watch old movies or only watch movies with which they're already familiar. They're missing out so much. It's like seeing a friend only eat McDonald's. Get yourself a taco for help. Get yourself a taco, or try something different, or go to a food truck. You'll pay the same money and get fascinating food and expand your tastes. But just because you grew up with McDonald's, you can't eat McDonald's forever. Even though it is one of my comfort foods. Double quarter pounder, extra pickles. But that expanding your horizons and just going somewhere else and seeing something from somebody else's viewpoint makes it so much better for you, because you're not, if what you are familiar with isn't available, you've got all this other stuff to explore. Damien, see you later, mate. Take care and enjoy your day. Ramsar says, what's an outstanding and thought-provoking Indian film, Sada Udham, 2021, about a Sikh guy who takes revenge on the Englishman who ordered the 1919 Amritsar massacre. That sounds like fun. I would see that and enjoy it. And yeah, I'm going to make a note of that one, because Indian cinema is fantastic. RSFX says, people who only watch contemporary and recent films, but never old films. Yeah, The number of times I've heard people in conversation say, "I don't watch black and white movies." And again, that's one of those things where you want to roll up a newspaper and swat them upside the head. There's so much stuff they're missing out on. And one of the things old movies do, if you let them, you got to be open to this stuff. You got to open your heart and your perceptions. You're seeing it from a different cultural viewpoint. 1940s movies come from a very different culture and a very strange culture, and a culture which had pressures we don't know anything about because we didn't live through a global war. We didn't live through a place where people in England didn't know whether they'd have to be saying Heil Hitler for the rest of forever or not. There is a pivot point there in the world where that culture is so different from our own, but our own cultures are daughter cultures to what happened then. And so opening yourself up to older movies and understanding their cultural viewpoints, even if you disagree with them, which you probably should, is something really fantastic to do. And um, the entertainment value and just seeing, hey, how did they do that special effect in the 1940s when they didn't have digital technology, for instance, is one of those things that I really appreciate. And I keep discovering more and more movies from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s about which I knew nothing. There's an incredibly deep vein to mine with cinema around the world from those eras. French films from the 40s and 50s kick ass consistently, and their crime movies in particular are mind-blowingly good. RSFX says watching movies is a very broad sense of time travel. Yeah, and even in the background of things like English movies in the 1930s and 40s, where they do location shooting, there is time travel. You're seeing the streets as they were at the time. You're going, geez, I'd love to go into that shop and just browse, which is an extra to everything else in the movie. It's just something we get given as a gift for taking a chance on something that happened before we were born. And even for me, watching a movie from the 1960s like They're a Weird Mob, the Michael Powell movie set in Sydney, where I grew up. And there are all these things I remember, like red taxis and the streets and the way people dressed and things like that. There's not a tremendous amount of film of my hometown as it was when I was a child. So I really treasure a whole bunch of these movies and even TV shows where they're available that document the places I knew when I was very young. And memory is a dodgy thing. Reinforcing memory in a positive way is a good thing because our memories are unreliable, particularly after more than half a century. And just seeing stuff that triggered the memory and made me remember what old cabs looked like and how people dressed and how people spoke, which is very different from the way I speak. I speak with an educated Australian voice, but I grew up with a very broad Australian accent because I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney where people were poor and spoke really broadly Australian. But since I was an adult, I hung out with people who were much more educated than I am. And so my accent shifted. I code switched and it's stuck now. This is the way I speak, and I'm happy with the way I speak. But it's incredibly different from the accent I had up until about the age of 25. Ramsar said, watch Breaker Moran for the first time since the 80s. Definitely think they were made scapegoats. The British Boer War was a guerrilla warfare, yeah. In modern terms, and people have done mock retrials of Harry Harbour Morant, it's still a war crime what they did. They were scapegoats for certain things, but they still committed war crimes. Keith F says, I love discovering old movies I'm not familiar with. Best old movie I've seen in a while was The Great Van Robbery from 1959. Little 70-minute British pick, but for me it worked. Yeah, there are small English movies like that which don't get a lot of light shone on them, which really are fantastically adept at what they do. By the way, I've got to mention this because I always have to mention this. Super chats are available in chat, so if you hit that dollar sign, you can donate to the channel. Not saying you have to, but part of doing a live stream is mentioning that. Let's see what we've got here. What else is upcoming? I want to see what there are new releases on Imprint, so I want to see some things I might recommend. If you want all the Benny Hill movies, Benny Hill TV series, you can get that on Imprint as well. Let's have a look here. I'll look at their selling fast list because there's a lot of good stuff there. Film Focus Harvey Keitel's selling fast. There is a standard edition, fairly cheaply, of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971, which I recommend. Nice little horror film, works really well. Didn't like that one. Night of the Eagle, also known as Burn Witch Burn. That one's selling out as well. There's an Imprint release of that on Blu-ray, which I recommend people get. Let's see. Go over to the next page. Why is the next page the same as the first one? That's just dishonest. But yeah, there's lots of Imprint films. Let's have a look here. I'll look at the Imprint television as well because they put out some really weird and wonderful stuff there as well. Man in a Suitcase is coming out on Blu-ray from Imprint as well, which is a 1960s English TV show with Richard Bradford in it, which, apart from anything else, has a kick-ass theme song. The Persuaders is out. The Prisoner, like I said before, Randall Hopkirk Deceased is out. A whole bunch of different editions of The Avengers, some of which are out of stock, but Imprint are doing some really great ITV TV things, which really work. I watched the first episode, as I said in the previous video, of Randall Hopkirk Deceased, and it just worked for me. I just liked what it did and how it did it. Richard said, I'm one of those people who generally dislikes old movies, though many of my old-time favourite films are old films. Yeah, it's like eating unfamiliar foods, Richard. The more you do it, the more you'll like it. But just so we're kind of lucky because if you're looking at physical media, or even if you're looking just at streaming services, our access to old films and our access to classic cinema is unprecedented in human history. I can not move from the seat I'm on and bring up a whole bunch of stuff from the past on any one of the screens I've got in front of me. And occasionally I think back to my childhood and my young adulthood, just before VHS. None of that was possible. I couldn't own a movie in my youth, but now I can, and now I own thousands of them. That still blows me away so much and so often. Evil Pixie says, a lot of stuff was filmed in Morecambe, from Alan Bennett Place to currently the Bay. I always like to play my house. Yeah, why not? Finally says, have I seen the remake of Randall Hopkirk Deceased? It's actually good. Yeah, it's Reeves and Mortimer. They're always good, but I haven't seen it. Keith Evans says, yesterday I tried to get a physical copy of The Great Band Robbery. The only one I could get is a DVD in plain sleeve. No, thanks. Yeah, there are some dodgy things out there. I made that mistake with a couple of things where I bought them off eBay and I thought they were legit. And when I got them, I found out they weren't. I got my money back and got to keep the discs because nobody's going to want to have a disc return which they just rip themselves. But yeah, so much good stuff isn't available, and so much good stuff just disappears, which is why I don't mind, for certain things, piracy, because it makes things available. And one of the things I suspect, though I've got no evidence of this, is that pirated ripped VHS copies of old movies tell people who want to release films what's out there, and they can watch a dodgy shit VHS rip of a movie and then go to the studios, find out that there is a 2K or a 4K scan of them, and then they release them when they get the rights to them. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff which people are notified of, people in the industry are notified of by pirated copies, and then they create legitimate physical media copies because there's never been one previously. I'm itchy for some reason. I mean, yeah, piracy has saved countless lost films, Adam says, and I agree. I mean, my unicorn at the moment is somebody doing a 2 or 4K scan of Darker Than Amber, the Rod Taylor action film, which Robert Klaus directed. Fantastic movie. Nice little role for Rod Taylor. Brutal action scenes where Rod Taylor and William Smith go toe to toe and they actually punch the shit out of each other for real while they're making that one. It's only available on like a VHS rip with Dutch subtitles burnt into it. But it's from MGM, big studio, in 1970, and it's just not there. Peter says, Jonathan Harris, Dr. Smith, grew up in a broad New York City Bronx accent. He got rid of it to the point where people used to ask him if he was English. He answered, no, just affected. Yeah. A lot of people lose their natal accents. And it happens. I'm okay with it. I did have a little bit of a kind of concern about it, particularly when I reattached to my family and other family members had my original accent. That was a little bit difficult, but that's how it is. Some of us move and some of us find our best selves, and it gets reflected in our voices. Adam says, case in point, Island of the Lost Souls. That was my unicorn for years. My first physical copy was a bootleg at a horror convention. Yeah, I know that Umbrella put that out on a double feature Blu-ray, and the copy they've got is pretty damn good. I've got a copy of that one. Itchy again. Must be the marabunta. But yeah, just so many movies are now available that weren't, and people were alerted by pirated copies, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that the illicit becomes licit because the availability, and it enabled people to see things that weren't available by legitimate means, and then they could then create a legitimate market for them. I think that's really great. Remzar said, watch Alexander Nevsky, 1938, by the Russian director Sergei Eisenstein. Sorry. Lost the static camera due to technical limitations. Commissioned by Stalin against the Germans before Operation Barbarossa. Yeah, cool. I think Russian cinema is underappreciated. Now, we've all got our issues with Putin and the current regime and what they're doing in Ukraine and things like that. But the culture of Russian cinema is interesting. Watching things like the horror film from 1965, I think it is. That movie's got a vibe all its own, and it's got a really interesting way of doing horror. And I'm glad I got a Blu-ray of that one. I think it might be Eureka, put out a Blu-ray of it. But V is a fantastic little horror film, very much from a Russian traditional cultural viewpoint, but geez, it kicks ass. Friday says, I always find amusing that the robot in Star Crash is more like what George Lucas wanted C-3PO to be like. Originally planned to be a brash with a Bronx accent. C-3PO and R2-D2 are based on the two peasants from The Hidden Fortress, Kurosawa's movie. And to be honest, if those two peasants if R2-D2 and C-3PO were more like those two scrounging, amoral peasants, it would have been a much better movie, because those guys who survive all of the royalty battles and the cultural battles and the shoguns going up against each other and all that are the core of the Hidden Fortress in so many ways. And if you want to get a reality check, why is my eye leaking? If you want to get a reality check on just how second tier Star Wars is, check out The Hidden Fortress. It's kick-ass entertainment. I love it. And I love what it does. And I hate the fact that George Lucas ripped it off. Yeah. By the way, I'm just changing tack again. I really hope we get more of those Charles Band full moon movies on decent Blu-rays as well, because I watched so many of them in the 1980s on VHS. I finally got myself a Blu-ray of Zone Troopers, which is this little film that Band did in Italy, where a bunch of World War II GIs come up against aliens, and it's just such fun, and it hits all the tropes of movies filmed in the 1940s about GIs during World War II, but it's got science fiction aspects and it's got aliens. Special effects are no better than they need to be. There's a big model of a crashed spaceship, which I like. And the actors in it, including Tim Thomerson, just nail the kinds of roles they're supposed to have in that. I want a much bigger release of Zone Troopers. I'm hoping that Umbrella would be the ideal place. We'll get to put out a copy of Zone Troopers at some stage, because it's one of those 80s science fiction movies that I love beyond its quality and beyond the possibility of it, you know, being better than it is. But there's just so many of those. And I'm glad that a lot of them are getting re-releases, particularly those full moon Charles Band joints, because I think they're respected. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate the contribution there, mate. I'm going to put a like on that one. Put a heart even. I could put a heart on that one. But yeah, thank you very much. But yeah, those 1980s, they're very much B pictures. They were made to feed the market of VHS physical media. They're just such fun. They're kind of kick ass. They don't go to the extent of excessive gore. They don't have gratuitous nudity in them. They just have wild science fiction concepts and mad horror or science fictional tropes in them. And there was, any movie in the 1980s that Tim Thomerson appeared in is bloody entertaining. And I just love them in the same way that I love, and again, this parallels things because some of the people who worked on the Charles Band movies also worked on this. Like the 1990s TV series of Flash with John Wesley Shipp. That kicks ass, and there's this aesthetic of kind of B picture genre films and genre TV from the 1980s and early 1990s, which I think is underappreciated. And I love it whenever some of that comes out. And Umbrella releasing that Full Moon Fright Box, Volume 1, it says, which gives me the hope that there's going to be a Volume 2. Because I used to own VHS copies of all of these before I got rid of my VHS tapes. Bastards took up so much room. Tell you a story. 1998, I went to America. And one of the things I bought in America, apart from everything else I bought, was an enormous sports bag, because it was the only thing I could find where I could fit all of the VHS tapes I bought in America into the bag. And I had a flight that came via Tokyo, had a stopover in Tokyo for 5 hours, and then came back to Australia. And they had to scan my carry-on, which included this enormous bag full of VHS tapes. And it went through the X-ray scanner, and all you could see were the little sprockets of all these VHS tapes going through the scanner. But yeah, all of that stuff I got rid of. Franny says, love Tim Thomerson, especially Trances movies. Led me down a rabbit hole to find the Quark TV show. Yeah. I've got the original Trances. I actually paid a premium and got the American edition. I've got Trances on 4K. And I love the fact that I have. But if Umbrella or someone of that ilk put out all of the Trances movies, the fifth one's shit. If they put out all the Trances movies on Blu-ray, I will be a happy camper. because yeah, that movie just kicks ass. I love it so much, and I think that it it's got its tongue in its cheek. Trans Trances has Helen Hunt's in that too. Um, but all those Full Moon and Charles Band joints, as far back as Laser Blast, are really a lot of fun. Ramsar says, "What's a mind-twisting Italian movie somewhat based on Kafka's The Trial? Investigation of a citizen above suspicion." I think that's with Jean-Louis Trintignant in it. Haven't seen that one for a very long time. I think I saw it on SBS back in the day. But yeah, that one's worth re-watching. Absolutely, it's very dark. Again, I love my 3D printed notebooks. Scuzz Bopper says, just watched Laser Blast earlier this month. Yeah, Laser Blast is basic. I mean, it was, I think, Charles Band's first film. But I like the stop motion aliens. I like what they do with the stop motion aliens. And it's got that 1970s living in the country teenager aesthetic as well. But I think I even know the cinema I first saw Laser Blast. It was at the Town Cinema in Sydney, the middle of Sydney, which is no longer there, like most of the cinemas in Sydney. Gone. But I saw Laser Blast. I saw Laser Blast at the Town Cinema, and I love it. That knob box still makes a good noise. Yeah, that I think I'm going to lean into that 1990s aesthetic and see what I can find. I know that I've got an order in for that Full Moon Fright box set when Umbrella release it. I'll give you some inside baseball stuff. When I get review copies, what happens is Imprint and Umbrella send out an email with a Google Doc link, and you tick off the things that you want to get as reviewed copies. And then I get a follow-up email from Umbrella. I don't get it from Imprint, but I get it from Umbrella, saying that I've got an order in for those movies at a $0 balance. And I know that I've got a copy of those Full Moon movies coming to me. And I'm going to watch them and suck them up and suck all the juice out of them and enjoy them. So that's how it works backstage. And I'm incredibly privileged and blessed to do that. But it is a way for them to get the news of these movies out and to get somebody to evaluate them when they do come out, which is what my job is when it comes to these things. Friday says, Andrew Robinson is great in Transfer 3. Andrew Robinson, underrated actor. He was the bad guy in Dirty Harry. I have a problem with Dirty Harry, I'll be honest with you, because Harry Callahan is a total bastard, a total prick. And I hate the character. And I've seen all of the Dirty Harry movies. But I could never engage with the character because he's a psychotic fascist. And there's nothing for me to love in that. I've seen any number of psychotic fascists in movies. And occasionally you can see something to emotionally engage with and see some kind of virtue in them. But with Dirty Harry, I just can't do that. Keith F says, now that we have Ian Holm in the new Alien movie, do you think they missed a trick by not having Kirk Douglas in Gladiator 2? No, because I don't think they need to. Zombie actors, in that sense, are something I don't think we need. They're just there to tick a box and as fan service. I don't think they're required. Adam says, I too have come to hate Dirty Harry as much as I used to enjoy the film. Yeah. As we change and as we evolve, and hopefully as we get better as men and women and other genders, I think there are times we evaluate things we liked in the past and we realize that they're not good and the characters aren't good and the characters are bad people. But it is a way of marking our progress toward enlightenment when we go, I still like that actor in that movie, in that character. But reevaluating it now, I'm wise enough to know they were total pricks. And I think that's a good measuring stick for us to see where our hearts and minds are going as we become more experienced in life and as things happen to us and as we make things happen to us. These movies are useful for that kind of thing. I mean, I used to like when I was a kid, I'd watch the Jolson story and Jolson Sings Again on TV when it came up. And while I appreciate the music, I can't get past the blackface now. And there are a number of other musicals like that. It's one of those things where we're evolving as people. Hopefully, we are evolving as people, and it's okay that we don't like some of the things we liked when we were younger, and it's okay that they make us cringe. It's not okay if we feel bad about ourselves because of it. That's not what it's there for. We can't just go, I used to be a racist because I liked Larry Parks in Jolson Sings Again. No, we just didn't know. We didn't have the perspective we have now. We didn't have the experience we have now. Adam says, well said, so thank you. But yeah, movies are useful in that way. They're useful to enable us to see things. And there are movies also that make us wiser. I saw Cry the Beloved Country, the Lost in the Stars, the musical version of Cry the Beloved Country, which is an older movie from the early 1960s, which was a musical about black people in South Africa in the 1950s, I'm going to say 40s, 50s. And that taught me a lot about racism. Just one movie, an obscure one, but it taught me about racism as much as my life experience did. Keith says it's just disrespectful of dead actors to zombie them. I agree. I think that their careers, I mean, re-release their movies, do it that way. But I'm not comfortable with zombie Peter Cushing and zombie Ian Holm and zombie whoever else. I don't think that's necessary or kind. Peter says, I feel the same about James Bond. Tried hard for you to select the character, but always thought he was one dimensional. I think that Daniel Craig did the best job of making Bond three dimensional. His Bond is somebody that, yeah, is a blunt instrument and definitely not a good man, but there's an arc to those movies which take him on a journey of becoming a better man. And that's a bit surprising with these films. And it's a bit surprising that that actually occurred in a franchise which very easily could have been petrified frozen in time, but they didn't. And a lot of people kicked up about Craig as Bond. But I think as far as cinema and as far as character is concerned, Daniel Craig's Bond is the best Bond. Much as I love Connery, much as I even like Timothy Dalton, and much as I've got a sweet spot for Lazenby, I think that Daniel Craig's James Bond is the most realistic one and the one with whom I can most sympathize without approving of a lot of the things he does. And I think that was a wise choice by Eon Films, who make the James Bond films, to give us a 21st century James Bond and giving him an arc and an endpoint for this particular iteration of that character. I think that works. Evil Pixie says, not watched the Harry Callahan movie since it came out on UK TV, but I seem to rewatch Point Blank and other Parker movies every few years. Point Blank kicks ass so hard. John Borman did such a job in there. Lee Marvin, when Angie Dickinson is beating on his chest. Marvelous stuff. In 98, when I went to Alcatraz, the only movie I could think of was Point Blank. And when I went down to that exercise yard, all I could think of is Lee Marvin swimming to shore from Alcatraz. Fantastic movie. I've actually got it on my coffee table to rewatch. It's only a DVD copy, an American DVD but geez, I like that movie, and I like what Borman did with it, and I like the fact that there's a really interesting character in there, and Lee Marvin is just such a mensch. Peter Lorre wasn't in Breakfast at Tiffany's. That was Mickey Rooney. But I understand the principle, Linda. Yeah, Peter Lorre did play Japanese character in Mr. Moto movies in the 1940s. Hungarian playing a Japanese, what can you do? But then America had locked up all the Japanese Americans when the Mr. Moto movies were made. And then in the 1960s, there was a reboot of Mr. Moto where they got a Sicilian guy, Henry Silva, to play Mr. Moto. Hopefully we got better than that, and hopefully that kind of shit won't come back again, because not right, not fair, not honest. And even though Laurie was good playing Mr. Moto, he was never bad in any movie. Just shouldn't happen. But yeah, probably the worst Asian person in any movie is Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think there should be a cut where they replace him with somebody else. Now I've got all sad because of that. Anything else here I want to talk about that I've got on the desk? There's got a lot of stuff on the desk. Sorry about that nose blowing, but I've got to do it. Ramsay said, I still watch the first two Dirty Harry movies with perspective. Vigilante and fascist cops in the US are not far from reality back then. LAPD didn't reform until the 1990s. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I would have liked the Dirty Harry movies if they had made that more apparent that these guys are not right in their head, and that Harry Callahan is not the hero, even if he does get rid of bad guys. There's a difference between a bad guy getting rid of bad guys and somebody of goodwill getting rid of bad guys. Keith F says, actually, 3 Bond films is enough for me. That's all I needed. Which 3? But yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. There's just so much stuff. But I'm kind of filtering in my head. If there's a sequel to a movie, I'm going to go into it with the idea that does the sequel add things? Is it a story that needed to be told? Is there more we needed to know about the character? I'm not talking about prequels that explain why X and Y were the people they were in a movie that was really successful. I'm talking about a continuation of the story. And I'd probably use the Daniel Craig James Bond film, because at the end of the first one, you got the death of Vesper, spoiler. And in the second one, part of the arc is James Bond finding out why she did what she did, and finding out what caused it, and finding out who did it. And that continuation is thematically right. And that trauma Bond suffered in Casino Royale has echoes through the rest of the films. And I think that's a good way to do sequels. Setting something up, but not totally resolving it, and giving us more and giving us a wider universe as each movie continues. Adam says, yes, there are honest killer cop movies and shows around, just don't make Dirty Harry a hero. Linda says, sorry about that. I knew it was Mickey Rooney. It's okay, Linda. We all make those mistakes. D. Lee says, the last Dirty Harry film, The Deadpool, had a female film critic being horribly murdered. The character was clearly based on Pauline Kael. The critic who slated the previous films, not nice. Absolutely. That's kind of passive-aggressive bullshit. And I've got a lot of Pauline Kael movie review books here. She's one of my go-tos for getting a different perspective on certain films of a certain era. And that mean-spiritedness and also misogyny just doesn't work. It's not honest. It's not fair. It's not right. It's cruel. And being cruel to people who, I mean, one of the things about film critics is, with certain exceptions, everybody who reviews a movie goes in hopeful. You hope the movie's going to be great. You hope the movie is going to entertain you. You hope the movie shows you something new and tells you something new and gives you something new and something worthwhile and something that is going to inspire you to keep doing what you're doing. So the optimism that people go in with is important to evaluating the movie, because our disappointment when the movie doesn't match up to those fairly prosaic ideals is part of what lets us perceive things about the movie and understand where the movie succeeds and where it fails. So to criticize a movie critic who wanted your movie to be better than it was and wanted your movie to be different than it was is cruel and privileged as well. And I hate that. Captain Lacy says, Bad Lieutenant was a bad cop but never intended to be shown in a good light. Absolutely. Bad Lieutenant is Keitel's best role, arguably. And the character is just a shit. RSFX, good wishes to Mags, get better real soon. Thank you. I'm going to look after her after this live stream. Friday says, Nautilus is quite good. Disney Plus killed it after filming finished and wrote it off. Very sad that we won't get a second series. Yeah. There are so many of those movies. I wanted to see the Batgirl movie that got killed off with Brendan Fraser playing the bad guy. I wanted to see that, but they're not going to let us because they write it off as a tax write-off, which means it can never be shown. D. Lee says the TV series The Shield had bad cops being bad. Yeah. And there's an honesty to that. And it doesn't mean you're not giving complex characters with complex motivations and reasons for being who they are in a complex world. It just means that you're moving past goodies versus baddies. And I think that's a much more mature approach to cinema and series as well. Giving us characters that we hate and who are total bastards, but we can't stop watching them. I mean, there's an art to that, which is to be appreciated. So we have 8 minutes left, he said, making a lot of noise with the top of his bottle. It's 7 minutes. Is there anything people want to say or recommend or anything else like that before we go? I will wait and I will give my opinion on it. By the way, I love everybody for being part of this live stream. It gets interactive. I've got lists of things I want to talk about, but for the most part, after a certain stage, the live stream gets lifted by the people who are part of it and who become part of the conversation. So that is so important to me doing this stuff. Doesn't it look professional to have a mic here? I mean, I'm so lucky I've got this microphone. It's actually a Rode mic that I won from Rode. It's about a $300 microphone. I know it doesn't sound it, but blame my voice, not the microphone. But I kind of like it sitting there. It makes me look like I know what I'm doing. So maybe the chat is lagging, which is always a possibility because our internet connection is sometimes not fantastic. Adam says, my number one movie of this year so far is Kneecap, the story of an Irish rap trio of the same name, inadvertently saving the native Irish language through their music. Great. I always like people fighting against cultural imperialism, which is why I do a couple of things when I'm doing anything in media. I'll never say sir something or lady something. I won't use honorifics given out by unelected people. And I will always differentiate between England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, because they're all different places. And it's only that colonizers hit those places. So I do that. Ken says, how do I store my film collection? Is it by actor, director, or genre? I do it alphabetically for most of them. Box says I've got in a different area, which I haven't organized in any way. Imprint and Umbrella I've got in separate areas because I like keeping them where they are. And the 4Ks I've got alphabetical in a separate area. Not perfect, but that's what I've got at the moment until I reorganize. Evil Pixies, I don't want to recommend Watchmen Chapter 1. All it made me do was watch the motion comic on YouTube. Was that the streaming series? Because I didn't mind that streaming series when it came out. Actually, don't mind the Zack Snyder Watchmen either, for that matter. Don't think it's as good as the comics, but still, that kind of stuff I'm a little less than critical about because I like a superhero narrative. And I think there are good actors in particularly the Watchmen movie. There are some good actors in there struggling to get out. Gary says, I'm just noticed the Howling 2 is coming out on 4K. Crazy movie. It is. Evil Pixie says, no, it's an animated remake of the film. Okay, I haven't checked that out yet. I'm not sure I will because I've got so much at the moment I've got to check out. And I've also got so much on the hard drive I haven't watched yet either. But maybe it's time to leave the Watchmen for a while and not go back to that universe because there's not a lot of meat on the bone based on what's already been put out. And it feels like it's getting to the cash cow stage. Ramsar says, John Bourne was a great director, tackling different genres. Point Blank, Hell in the Pacific, which I recommend. It's a fantastic film. Deliverance, Zardoz, Excalibur, Hope and Glory. Yeah, Bourman. I've actually got a biography of Bourman that someone sent me, which I really should visit. Hell in the Pacific is the science fiction movie Enemy Mine, except it's in World War II and it predates Enemy Mine. Hell in the Pacific is such a stripped-down action film and character-based film with Toshiro Mifune and Lee Marvin, which is fantastic film. D. Lee says, I saw a 1980s Czech stop-motion version of the Pied Piper recently. Very dark and made the townspeople the real villains. Had a different and more poetic ending. The townspeople were the villains. Keith says, did I get to watch that copy of Spider and the Fly you sent me? It's a massive recommend from me. I've got it near the top of the pile, Keith, but I haven't watched it yet. It's sitting on the coffee table, which is the go-to place for things I'm going to watch next. Captain Lazy said, watch a documentary on John Cazale, Fredo from The Godfather, called I Knew It Was You, an actor who never made a crap movie. Yeah, John Cazale, fantastic actor. Dog Day Afternoon, The Godfather movies, just gone too soon, but a fantastic actor. The General is a great Bourman film. I haven't seen that one yet, but I'm added to the list. But yeah, there's just again, I'm blown away, and I keep getting these recurring flashes of being blown away by the fact that we've got access to these movies, where it's unprecedented in history to have access to just so much cool shit. Kerry says, although it does star John Voight, I don't know whether it's tertiary syphilis or privilege, but John Voight is an actor whose mind has gone to a weird place and to a place which does not do his career justice. He's very much a Trumpista, and also he has a weird take on Christianity. Let's just put it that way. John Voight, there's like an arc of, yep, career's going up and up and up and up and up. Suddenly turns into a nutcase. I'm glad the snake swallowed him in Anaconda. Almost there now, and then I can have a break and a snack. I'm going to kind of roll things up. Thanks to everybody who's part of this live stream. I really appreciate it. I just love the interaction and the recommendations I get, and the fact that we've got technology to do this stuff. It's still mind-blowing to me. I'm never going to not appreciate that. John Cazale only made 5 movies that were all nominated for Best Film Oscars. He was an actor's actor, and he was an audience's actor too, absolutely. Yeah, everybody, have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. Watch some cool stuff. Watch some things outside your comfort zone because you'll never not learn from that shit. My pleasure, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you on the next live stream or on the next video.